Okay, we are live. So, hi everyone. Thank you once again for joining us on this Friday evening. Sorry, we are a little bit late. There was some technical issues at our end. So, sorry for starting 12 minutes late. But today we have Ankur Warikoo, as you can see on the screen, and I'm pretty sure if you are anywhere in the startup scene, if you follow startups, if you have been interested in startups, you would have heard this name fairly sure about it, like on multiple platforms. So today he'll be taking all the questions. So today I can basically take a back seat and I'll be forwarding all the questions about entrepreneurship and startups. So just like I do it every time, please keep your questions exactly on as specific as possible on startups and entrepreneurship, and so that we have sort of limited time, so that most sensible and most actually genuine questions can be put to Ankur sir. So sir, before actually we start taking questions from others, from our audience, I actually have a couple of questions. So sure, let's just begin with that, and then we will take all the questions that have been put to you. So I know you have been kind of involved in the Indian startup ecosystem for a while. Like, you have seen the whole startup ecosystem mature, from the time when startups, VCs, angel investing, a lot of these terms were still very new to entrepreneurs and the whole community in India. From there to now, where we actually saw at least around 15 unicorns just last year. So what has been your experience being involved in the startup ecosystem? How you have seen it grow, and what do you think the kind of opportunities that we see for the coming lot of entrepreneurs?
Okay. But firstly, thank you so much for having me. My apologies for being late. You were very generous to say that there was a technical glitch at your end, but the mistakes were mine. And I'm glad that I'm finally backstage, nearly not a millionaire. So it's backstage. Just
that we can leave for later to discuss.
But it's been a fascinating journey. The last decade has taught me so much. And I think the most gratifying thing that I've seen happen is there was a time when, in 2009, when I started my first startup, as you rightly pointed out, the concept of starting up, the concept of funding, the concept of scaling rapidly, growing, all of these were unknown. And there were just so many factors that were completely opaque. And our entire experience and our entire inspiration was from the West. So everything that the Valley said or everything that the Bay Area said was just absolute Lakshman ki Rekha. No doubting it. And everyone used to just follow it blindly with all the faith that we could. And I think the biggest change that has happened in the last decade is, one, we've had success stories come out. And because of those success stories, both financially and professionally, we've had this cycle of giving back that is beginning to take place. And that has been the biggest reason why the Bay Area or the Silicon Valley is what it is, because the Googles and the Amazons of the world, or even back then the Sun Microsystems of the world and the Apples of the world, they gave birth to these new class of citizens, if you will, who were absolutely gung-ho on startups and wanted to contribute to have more and more startups emerge in the country. And that's what we're beginning to see in India as well, where there is a wave of entrepreneurs who are now becoming angel investors and they're giving back. There is a wealth of knowledge that is being shared and distributed consistently. And it comes not from Maine Valley mein sikha tha, but comes from I have built this in India.
Correct.
And that's one massive change. And the second one is, it has then become also, because of the entire access to the internet, it's reaching corners of India that are not limited anymore. So gone are the days when only a Delhi or a Bombay or a Bangalore or a Hyderabad or a Pune were the hotspots. Now a hotspot could be anywhere. A Jaipur could be one, an Indore could be one, a Bhopal could be one, a Kolkata could be one. And that's great, because then suddenly the access is democratized, and anyone who has the will and the capacity will make success come through, which again is exactly what happened in the US and in China. So I think these two have been very gratifying to witness from a distance. And I remain an absolute supporter and a positive enforcer of the startup culture for the next 20 years in this country.
And what do you see, like all these things that we just spoke about, how are these things going to support the entrepreneurship ecosystem in the coming time?
I think the biggest thing, it will just make it easy for people to consider joining a startup or starting up a normal thing or a legit profession.
Correct.
Today, there is still competition with engineer and a doctor and a lawyer and a CA and all those traditional things that our parents have spoken about. And there is still a lot of risk attached to starting up or to join a startup. But it's changed considerably. 10 years back, it was not even heard of. Today, it's still spoken about. In the next 10 years, it'll be like absolutely common for people to be living and breathing startups, never worked in a corporate, maybe never even gone to college.
Correct.
And all that they know of is just starting up and working in one.
Great. So I think I have already taken my time, so I'll start taking the questions which have been sent on our YouTube channel. So Mohammed Salit is asking, hey, let's say koi startup karna hai, and he doesn't have much friends to build a team to get the work done. Tell us in simple, after building MVP and landing phase results, how to tie up with multi-vendors and MOUs. Okay.
So Mohammed, the first thing is remove the simple from it, because there's nothing simple. If it was, everyone would have done it. I don't know of a simple way of doing it, and I don't think you should look for one as well. The way to think about this is, when you've built your MVP, when you've tested the first phase and the first version of your product, ideally, if you've done it right, you should start seeing the first signs of money coming in.
Correct.
And if there is money coming in, whether from businesses, whether from customers, depending on whether it's a B2B or a B2C business, you have to start thinking of whether that money is enough for you to exist. And if yes, is there excess money that you can plow back into the business?
Correct.
The unfortunate thing is that it's become fancy to raise funds, and it's become fancy to say, I'm going to become really big from day one. Most successful startups were not like that, and they still aren't. They went about it in a slow, deliberate fashion.
Correct.
There is absolute merit in doing so. I remain a strong supporter of that. And from that perspective, I'd say that if you have the MVP in place, think about and force yourself to think about how can it make money so that it feeds for the business itself. Once you do that, your ability to get vendors, your ability to get team members, your ability to get investors becomes a lot higher, because now you don't have the pressure of making it work, and you don't need money to survive. You only need money to grow.
Okay, so talking about money, our next question is somewhere on funding and money. And Jeet is asking to approach VC. I'm a first-time founder. We are changing a big market and creating a new space on online commerce. Is it mandatory that before approaching a VC, we need to be funded by angels?
Before approaching a VC, you need to be funded by?
Angel investors.
Oh, no, not at all. Absolutely not. There's nothing like that. No.
And he has a follow-up question to that. To approach VC, we need references. Being a first-time founder and new to VC ecosystem, how can I get references to approach VCs?
See, now that's the trick. Ask yourself, why is the case that VCs need references? It's not because they're very busy. It's not because they don't check their emails. It is simply because they want to see what is the mechanism that a first-time founder applies to find a reference. Because that hustle is just the first step to indicate that you can make things work even when you don't have everything from get-go, that you are resourceful. So don't think of it like, oh, my access is closed because I'm not from an IIT or from an IIM or some other fancy place. Think about the fact that this is the bare minimum you should do.
Correct.
To display the fact that you are resourceful, क्योंकि इससे तो बहुत ज़्यादा और fight आपको जीतनी होंगी, बहुत सारी और मुश्किलें आएंगी.
Right.
This is the first step and possibly the smallest one, and that is why VCs rely on it. Having said that, take it from me, because I've seen the VC world close as well. They read every single email that comes to them. The only reason they don't respond is because those emails are not worth their response. And that has nothing to do with your pedigree. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. It is all in all to do with how well you have composed that email, how well you have thought through the product and how well have you presented it. So if you do a good job of cold emailing, trust me, you will get a response.
Okay, so next question we have is from Deepak, and I want to do a startup like that will solve almost all the burning problems of the farmers in states like Bihar. Moreover, also have a business plan, but I'm unable to think that how can I start? Which is okay. I'll let you take that.
No, I'd love to get your view. You were about to say something.
No, I mean I answer these questions every single week, so this time it's on you.
That's the spot I don't want to be in, because I don't want to be the one giving the answers, but hearing someone else's. But okay, since it's been asked, so Deepak, how do you start is a question that does not come from the lack of knowledge. It comes from a deeply instilled fear. So I'm being a little philosophical here, but hear me out. It is not that you can't know what it is that you need to do to start, because everything is available. मैं ऐसा कुछ आपको नहीं बताऊंगा जो आप खुद गूगल पे एक सिंपल सर्च क्वेरी से नहीं जान सकते. But the reason you are asking this question is because you are scared. You are scared of taking the first step, of thinking what will happen if that first step is not the right step, in thinking what happens if what you want to do does not work out. And that is not something that someone can answer for you. So I refuse to believe you that you do not know what you need to do to start. What I do think is you need to get hold of the fears that are inside you and ask yourself, what is it that I am fearful of? And if you can manage that fear well, the path to what you need to do is frankly just a simple Google search away.
Thank you for that. I'm pretty sure that will answer this question for a lot of people. So Mohammed Salit, who has already asked a couple of questions in the beginning, he has a follow-up question. Let's say Nearbuy when started with MVP and after landing page results, how to collect data from multi-vendors with no much contacts, and how to collect data and list them in your MVP when you start alone.
Okay. I think I get the question. So Mohammed, that's a good question, because let me broaden it out for everyone who's watching this. So Nearbuy essentially runs a marketplace of local merchants, restaurants, spa, salons, and so on. And that is the supply side. And on the demand side are consumers like you and I who want to buy deals from these merchants. And we connect the two of them. Simple as that. Now, when we started, the challenge was what comes first? Do the merchants come first, or the businesses come first, or do the consumers come first? Because if consumer नहीं होंगे, तो business क्यों list करेगा? और अगर businesses list नहीं होंगे, तो consumer क्यों आएगा? And that's a classic chicken and egg problem. We were very, very clear from day one that we have to get the businesses first, and that is the reason why the consumers will come.
Right.
Now the question is, why will businesses come? And there it was very clear that they will not come if there is any economic cost for them to come and join us. Because if there is a cost and they're not going to get any revenue out of it, no one's going to come. You will not do it. I will not do it. So then we made a very clear proposition, which is no listing fee. So you don't have to do anything. We will do all the hard work for you. We will click your pictures. We will put up all your information. We will write a nice, happy write-up. And we will list you on Nearbuy. And only when we are able to sell to a customer do we make money as commission from you. Not a penny before, not a day before. And the minute we did that, the businesses saw that we were in it with them. There was no advertising charge that they had to pay. There was no distribution charge that they had to pay. Everything was based on revenue and success of revenue. And that was the only way that we could have ramped up to the size that we did.
Right. So again, we are getting actually a lot of follow-up questions, and this also requires a little bit of philosophical touch that you spoke about in the last one. Currently, I'm working in electronic core field, and I don't want to take a lot of risk, and at a time because my financial situation is also not good. So please suggest when and what should be the best way to start.
So it seems to me, and I'm sorry that I am assuming this on your behalf, that the reason you want to start up is because you think that it will get you out of the financial situation. It's like a way of making money.
Correct.
And if that is the case, then let me be the first one and not the only one to tell you, Starting up is the worst way to get rich, the worst possible way to get rich, because the odds are so against you. You will not play that gamble in real life. And I'm surprised how many people play that gamble when it comes to starting up. Because you not only have to survive, you have to grow to such an extent that you're able to, if you've raised money, give an exit to your investors. And then whatever then is left is for you to take.
Correct.
During that time, you will not be most likely taking a market salary. You will be constantly under pressure to cut costs, and you will be the first line of defense to always do that. So it is a journey that is not meant to be financially prudent. And all the happy stories that you hear about people becoming billionaires are the only ones who survived. You and I will never hear of the people who died in this journey. Correct. Because who talks about them? So please do not think of starting out if you want to get rich. My suggestion for you, and I've tweeted about this a lot, don't ever make the mistake of starting up if your financial situation is not good. The only circumstance you do that is if you're a student and you have no responsibilities. It's the best time to start up. But if you do have responsibilities, then you have your responsibility towards your family, towards your own self, whosoever it is. Please stabilize that first. And that will mean and should mean that your startup is a side gig while you still continue to be in a job.
Right.
I have done that, and I can tell you it works. Lots of people do that, and I can tell you it works. It's just not looked at favorably because like, oh, all in or nothing, go home or go out and all that shit. It's all bullshit. The smart people are always mitigating their risks while trying to create upside. So you have your job that pays for the bills, and it's an important thing to do. Money is important. At the same time, to fulfill your passion, work on your startup, your nights and weekends. Do that for 1 year, 2 years, as long as it takes. And at some point of time, it will give you the confidence to quit your job, or it will show you the reality that you should never quit your job.
Right. That was great. So we have next question from Ali. And let's say I have a good idea and I have developed a working prototype. Now, how to approach investors and how can one judge that they are the real investors? That's another thing that I think a lot of us in India would find.
So, okay. So let me answer the second one because that is a more interesting question to answer. So how do you judge who's a real investor? For me, a real investor is someone whose only and only business is investing. Which is why angel investors are not real investors. They are angel investors, which means that they'll most likely give you money because they know you, they like you, they are willing to bet on you. But they have their own ways of making money, which could be their own startup, which could be their own salary, which could be their own thing, whatever the case may be. But a real investor, in my view, is a guy or someone, a company, whose only and only job is to invest money. That is their profession. And that certainly means institutional investors, it means financiers, it means banks, it means anyone else who can lend you money or give you money as equity, whatever the case may be. Now, how do you approach these people? Usually these people respond to references, which is what I stated right in the beginning. That doesn't mean that they don't respond to cold emails. They do. But the best way to reach out to investors is to always and always have a product and a market that is visibly working for you in front of them. That is the best pitch. That is the absolute best pitch. I know I get so many pitches on a daily basis. The best ones are the ones who don't talk about मैंने यहाँ से पढ़ाई करी, मेरे इतने नंबर आए, मैंने इतनी फाइट मारी है, nothing like that. They're simple and simple about, here's the product, here's the demo video, here's the problem that it solves, let me know if this interests you. And they're okay to hear a no, because they know that it will not interest everyone. But there are enough people that say yes to it, and that forms their pool.
Okay, so you just spoke about मैंने यहाँ से पढ़ाई करी, and the next question is exactly on that. Karthik is asking, how much of a difference does a college make for getting VC fundings?
No, it doesn't make a difference, yeah. So again, think about it this way, and I'm being practical when I say this. The reason why you will hear more and more people from the IITs or the NITs or engineers in general getting funding is because they are in an environment where most of them pick that up. It's just the law of averages. There's nothing else. There are close to 7,000 IIT engineers that pass out of India every year. Even if 10% of them go on to startup, that's 700 startups. In any other college, that number is 1%, 2% on a much smaller base. That is why you don't hear it. As simple as that. So please do not think, and I speak from personal experience. I didn't go to an IIT. I went to an ISB, but frankly, the MBA school doesn't matter anyway. The only reason why I was able to raise money is because we had a good product, we were in a good market, and we were very confident about what we had done. And that's what worked for us. None of the founders of Nearbuy are from IIT, or for that matter, any such fancy place, but it just worked because we were in the right spot. And that is true for any VC. They don't eliminate basis college.
Correct. So next question is from Dikan, and according to Simon Sinek, while doing product market fit research, one should focus more on the first 5 to 10% of the early adopters to get more insightful results. How to find and finalize that target group?
How to finalize that? Okay, my interpretation of your question is, how do you find the early adopters and how do you get feedback from them?
Correct.
If that is a question, then you don't find the early adopters, you discover your early adopters. And that's a big difference. So you throw something out into the universe and you find some people reacting favorably to it and some people not. And the ones who are responding favorably to it, those become your early adopters. The way to ask what is the feedback from the early adopters is not to ask whether you like it or not like it, because that's usually the question we ask, but it's a very, very poor question to ask. The question is, what changes if this product is not there in your life from tomorrow? And in my opinion, a very strong way of building an MVP is to get to a point where an overwhelming majority, ideally 60 to 70%, people who use your product early on say that they will miss something deeply and miss something significantly if the product were to be not there from tomorrow. That is when I think you have MVP. For reference, search for Rahul Vora, who is the founder and CEO of Superhuman. It's an email service. He wrote a fantastic article on MVP and the journey that Superhuman as a product took to find its MVP. That is precisely what I'm referring to when I shared this example. Very useful article.
Okay. So next question is from Shivan. Why do majority of investors ask for board member seat in startups? Is allocation of board member for investor a mandatory process for fundraising?
No, it's not. Well, to some extent it is. If they are taking more than 5%, then they have a right to ask for a board seat. Of course, you have a right to refuse, but most people do put in that clause that they will have a board seat. The simple reason why they're asking for it is because it is their money that they're investing and it's sizable, because above 5%, it becomes sizable in the Indian law. And all that they want is just in some way a jurisdiction over the use of that money. Because at the end of it, the CEO will be you, who will be reporting to the board. And if the board comprises your mom and your dad and your brother, then you essentially have no fiduciary responsibility, which is not ideally the case. So it's not mandatory, but it's something that investors do want. And in very rare occasions do they say, we're okay not having it.
Okay. So next question is from Kavishras. Sir, why did hike fail in crisp way? You have seen it. How to change the mentality of people that trusting an Indian media app is good to go? I don't know if you understand that.
I really don't know why hike failed. And it's not my business and my capability to be commenting on it. It's never easy. I can tell you, knowing whatever little I know of Kavin, it's not that it happened because of lack of effort. But these are hard things, so don't know.
Next question is from Arman. What are the most important skills that you think to become an entrepreneur?
That's a good question, Arman. Thank you. I think number one is 100% the willingness to solve problems and solve them endlessly. A large part of entrepreneurship is solving problems, and if you're not in love with solving problems, then it becomes a really hard journey. Number two is the ability to deal with people and deal with them in such a way that you're able to draw the best out of them. And that is also an art which not most people are gifted of, but is a necessary component. And then third is just this intense level of comfort with ambiguity, because nothing is certain, nothing is known. It is all a journey of discovery. And if you're someone who craves for certainty, or you crave for some level of confidence in doing what you have to do, it may be a very, very tough journey, because a large part of the entrepreneurial path is just laden with uncertainty and with no visible clarity over what needs to be done. It's all like a shot that you're taking. And I feel that these three is the cornerstone of at least attempting to be a good founder.
Okay. So next question, I don't know if I understand that completely, but hi sir, I want to start a tech-oriented business. How can I, being a code rookie, develop the product apart from partnering with a learned co-founding CTO friend?
Okay, so I think the question, and this is a very applicable question in general, is I'm not a techie, but I want to build a tech product. How do I go about building a tech product?
Right.
And there are only two responses to it. One is you find a tech co-founder. It's easier said than done, but it is the best way to do it. If you can't, then for the early stage, which would be the MVP, you go about working with an agency or a group or a community or a network that you can trust, and you build it through them. Eventually, you will have to have it in-house. And that means eventually, sooner than later, you have to get someone senior, or you have to build that within your own founding team. There's no escaping that. The last resort that I would say is that you learn how to code yourself, because even if you do that, coding comes from just having intense experience of coding. Right. It doesn't come because you know how to code. So being a good coder and being someone who knows how to code is a massive difference.
Okay, so another question which I see on a regular basis. There are big tech giants like Google, Apple, Facebook. Is it possible to make a service that can compete with these companies?
100%. You have enough and more examples of people having done that.
Right.
So please don't think like there's a reason why startups exist, because there's nothing that a large company cannot do that a startup can. The only reason why the startup exists is because they're able to do it faster and fail fast and iterate fast than a large organization which is consumed in bureaucracy and consumed in consensual based decision making and product development. So that is your only shot. That is your only shot. And of course it can happen.
Okay, so next question is from Mr. Mega Board. Ankur is going live on his Instagram in a few hours, and now he's spending time here already. How does he have so much of energy?
Everyone has the same amount of time here. I don't have more time than you. I think I choose to spend my time where I do. And I can tell you from experience that if you think that I have time, it's purely because of one big thing, and that is that I say a lot more no's than I say a lot more yeses. So on a daily basis, 90% of my responses to "can you do this" is no. Not because I don't want to, but because it is not priority for me. It is not in line with where I want to spend my time. And that's why I end up saying yes to things that I feel are important.
Seems like we were kind of fortunate then.
Well, anything to do with startups and entrepreneurship and encouraging that has my time and attention.
Okay, so another thing I think you have touched upon it a little bit, but I think we'll need a little bit more detailed answer. Are tier 2 cities good to start a startup, or we should move to major cities like Gurgaon, Bangalore, or Mumbai, considering investors' connection and all other factors?
So tier 2 cities are great places to start. They may not be great places as yet to scale, but I think the fact that you're small, that talent is cheaper, running costs and expenses are cheaper, the internet allows you to be anywhere and access a global market, makes for enough and more reason why starting in a tier 2 city is actually an advantage. But as you scale, as you need more engineers, as you need more talent, you will perhaps have to move to a larger city because that's where the talent base is. So I'd say that it's a great place to start, and hopefully by the time you become big, the city itself would have become big to serve your needs from a talent perspective.
Correct. So I think I'll kind of pitch in one of my questions right now. And if you had to start Nearbuy all over again today in today's situation, what are the things that you think you would do differently?
A bunch of it. One is I would not start as many cities as we have. We're right now in 32 cities, and we realized it only afterwards that the depth in the country when it comes to discretionary spending, which is where Nearbuy's market is really, really small. It's a steep fall beyond the first 5 to 7 cities. So I'd only be in 5 to 7 cities. That's number one. Number two is I would absolutely build a app only experience and not a desktop experience, because it is a location based service, and having an app phenomenally increases the experience that the consumer has as against using it on the desktop or the laptop. And number three, I would overinvest in content, which is something that we did very little of and did very late. I today understand the power of content because I create so much of my own and I see how it works. And I wish we had relied more on content than we did on marketing.
Okay. So next question I have is, during your work with Nearbuy, did you ever target older people, like people over 60 years of age? And if yes, any tips how to get your product to them?
No, we didn't, unfortunately. I would say unfortunately. We never found that audience to be applicable because it was hard for them to move to the technology that we had. They weren't very discoverable, so we didn't focus on them.
Why most of startups in India are fail? Is it lack of innovation or any skills?
No, yeah, I think the genuine reason is because most of the startups are focusing on India as a market, and India as a market is still a young market. We are inherently a poor country. We don't have enough depth in terms of consumption power. The percentage of people who are rich and are able to dispense income is minuscule as compared to the broader population that is still struggling to make ends meet.
Okay.
And that's why it is a hard market to build. We are a market of volume, but not yet of value. And that's why you would see that it's not as big. It's just a matter of time. But the reality is what it is.
Right. So Amit is asking, if you are a solopreneur and your skill is tech, how to work on marketing and content promotion?
I think the best way for you to be a tech entrepreneur and to build a tech company, but to get expertise from outside, is to just get them on your team. You don't have to get them on founder basis if you can afford it. That is. If you can't afford it, then I'd say start with your gut. You'll be surprised at how many times it's actually right than wrong. And just work with people who are super, super, super solid on execution, so that you just pick up what you've told them to and execute immaculately. And if you're able to do that, then I think you'll have a good chance of success.
Okay. So next question is from Adarsh, and I think you have a little bit touched on that, but again, I think he needs a little bit more detailed answer to that. How to get over the fear of doing something new or different, especially when you're starting?
The only way to do that, no, sure, I shouldn't say the only way. The mental model that I use is to visualize what is the worst thing that can happen if I were to take the step that I want to take. And then to really ask myself, what is it that I will need to do to be okay with that worst case happening?
Right.
You just go into problem solving mode. And the good thing is it's still imaginary right now. So it's something that's in your mind and you have to build a construct around it. But it's fascinating how our mind works, because the minute you think of the worst case scenario and you start thinking of how you can deal with it, your mind is a lot calmer than it was. because all that it's doing is just working over to tell you that there is possible danger. And the danger in front of the mind is a fear of failure, because it knows that you will go through emotional distress and that will be a cause of concern. So it wants to prevent that from happening. But if you tell it, you know what, mind, I am in some way okay with it because I have a plan to deal with it. The mind's like, great, it seems like you're sorted. I don't need to be in this overdrive as much as I am, so I'll let you be. And suddenly your fear of failure begins to come down.
Okay, so next question, I think a lot of people will find it relevant. Rashid is asking, what should I do after completing MBA in finance? I don't want to end up selling insurance or product. What skills should I focus on?
So it seems like the MBA in finance, Rashid, was not your choice or was something that you didn't know better of. It's such an open-ended question here. Here's what my suggestion would be, Rashid. First is get financial stability, because that's important in life. Pick up any job. As long as it doesn't affect your health, pick up any job. Doesn't need to fulfill you. Just pick up any job that pays for your bills. And then in your nights and weekends, explore. Explore as much as you can. Work on different projects. Do multiple internships. Work with people for free. Go and learn something new. Figure out what are things that you enjoy doing, that you're good at. It will take 1 to 2 years, but at least you will not struggle financially because of that journey. And then the day you find it, and it's not going to be a day, it's going to be a journey. You will discover that. But the day you discover it, you then will have a lot more confidence to quit your job and then pursue that. But don't be foolish and go out in that search before you even know what you're searching for.
Right. So Mridul is asking, how could someone start a hedge fund in India, and what should be the target space?
I have no idea about hedge funds, so I will be the wrong person to answer this.
Okay. Shorik is asking question. Suppose we have an MVP ready for targeting a niche segment. Should we approach a VC first to build the product, get clients, and then reach out? Which is
you know the answer.
Yeah,
please, product and consumers first.
So Dikan again has a new question. I exited from a startup because the core values of my co-founder were not good and focus on just making money anyhow by any good or bad means. How to prevent these things? He just changed suddenly.
I don't think he changed suddenly. I think you discovered him suddenly. People don't change about these things. So it's fascinating that you have discovered this, because trust me, a lot of people don't. So congratulations on that. For me, a very, very important criteria for finding a co-founder is value match. If my values don't match, I think it's foolish to be even trying that, irrespective of how skilled that founder could be. Because you want to be in it for the long term. And in the long term, the only thing that matters is whether you think alike on things that matter to you.
Right.
So congratulations of having figured that someone didn't work out for you sooner than later. Just try and not make the mistake again.
Okay, so next question is again, I mean, this is another thing which gets asked to me every single week, and we don't have an answer to that. But now I think finally we have someone who could answer. What are the books that you can recommend to confuse teenager who wants to start up?
I think irrespective of the age, there are a few books that I would strongly recommend. One book that I love, and it's my most gifted book, is this book called Rework by Jason Fried and DHH. So just look for Rework, you'll get it. I, from particularly entrepreneurship, loved the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's a great book. There's another great book called 0 to 1. There is a fantastic book which is not about entrepreneurship but just teaches you a lot, which is Tools of the Titans. And there is a brilliant biography called Shoe Dog, which is the story of the founder of Nike, the sports company. And a bunch of these books, but I think these will be good starting points.
Okay, so just I think in the last question we were talking about with Rashid when he wanted to not, the MBA guy, that do a lot of internships. And that's something like I've been associated with a lot of student community, and that's something I tell. Even after like a lot of students in Indian colleges, they don't want to take risks. They kind of enjoy, want to enjoy their college life. And once they're out of college, they're like, okay, we don't know anything, how to get started and how to. So what are some of those things that you think as soon as students are getting into college, as soon as anyone who wants to start up, obviously like first or second year, we kind of get an idea of what our areas are, what do we really want to do. So what are those things which according to you a student should be focusing on when they are maybe just busy wasting time in the first or second years?
I'd say just maximize your opportunity of learning here. Um, I the 2 or 3 things. One is get as close to the sun as possible. What I mean by that is identify people that you think that you can learn from the most, and do whatever it takes to be as close to them as possible. Do an internship with them for free if it has to be. Work in their company. Work with any vendor or supplier of theirs that gets you in some way access to them, because that is supremely critical. Pick up internships, send cold emails, use that time to hone your communication skills, whether it's public speaking, whether it's writing skills, whether it's listening skills. The best thing about college is that you can make a lot of mistakes and get away with it. So please make mistakes. Don't play it safe. That's the worst use of your college time.
Right. So next question I have about the college incubation centers, which actually now we have seen a lot of these colleges and universities basically having their own incubation centers, and somewhere like students are still not very positive about them, like to get there, to basically get there with an idea or something. So what do you think? I mean, what are your suggestions on that, or maybe a general comment on it?
Yeah, the thing is, I can in some way relate to the skepticism around college incubation centers, because to me the purpose of college is to educate and not to incubate. So it's almost like suddenly Maruti as a company is saying, let me make toothpaste because it is important for you and you use it every day. I'm not going to believe Maruti as a toothpaste company. I believe in Maruti as a car company, but suddenly when it starts doing something else that is important, but it has no experience of, it most likely is going to do a shoddy job of it. So I think most of the skepticism is just driven by the fact that they don't even know what it is to run an incubation center. I don't mean to say that not all colleges do a good job. Yes, some colleges do a phenomenal job, but most don't. And unfortunately, then they bring a bad name, because then people are like, "Ye sirf naam ke liye khol diya, there's nothing really happened there," and it's a waste of time.
Okay, so suggestion for a new startup to keep most of the share with themselves and get some funding too.
Get funding from your customer.
Okay.
Make a product good enough that your customers pay for it. You would never have to raise money.
Yeah, that's another thing I think a lot of people are kind of scared about. I mean, they don't want to dilute their equity. They think that this is something they really have to hold to, and they also want to raise funds because they obviously need fund to build that company. So, what's like your 2 cents on that?
There is no way of doing that. So the only way is that you either raise money from early friends and family and angels so that you don't dilute a lot, but that hopefully is the only money that you need to ever raise, and then you go about building a nice, happy, profitable company. Or you get addicted to raising money, and then dilution is the only reality. It's mathematical. There is no escaping it.
Okay, next question we have from Harish. Do you have any plans to start a new startup?
I do. I think I'm on that journey already.
Or you want to give more details on it?
I don't know. I just don't know. It's still shaping up, so too early.
Where can I find a mentor in general related to my specified subjects?
Yeah, I've created a lot of content around seeking mentors, because I think it's a very important thing to do. To give you a gist, one, please don't look for mentors who are really big, because then the difference and the distance between them and you is very wide and it doesn't help. Two, don't look for mentors who are very similar to you, because then their worldview is going to be the same and they're going to be saying the same things.
Right.
And three, I personally feel that you should not have just one mentor in life, because that's too much of pressure on one person to say the right things and to be that role. Have multiple mentors for different spheres in life. Now, suddenly when you do that, even your colleague and your friend and your brother can be your mentor. It's just how comfortable you are in thinking of them as one.
Right.
So once you break that shackles of who should be a mentor, anyone around you who does this job can be one.
Okay, so I think we are done. There are a couple more questions, but before that, I'll ask one from my side. Like, I've been following you on Twitter for a while, and you, I think, vocally talk about failures, like why we should highlight our failures. Why is it important to kind of, wear them on our sleeves? So, what do you think? Basically, taking pride in your failures, or talking to people about your failures, can make someone, or basically can change in someone's life.
I don't think it's about taking pride or speaking about failures. It's more important about reflecting on failures. Failures are a very interesting animal because we're always told that only if you fail will you succeed.
Okay.
But that's not the truth, because everyone fails in life, but not everyone succeeds. So clearly there is something different in the failure of people who eventually succeeded. And I feel that difference is their ability to reflect on that failure. They go through that failure and then they ponder upon it, speak with their own selves about it. And that is what makes them both comfortable about their failure and also a lot more aware about how that failure shaped them. So when I speak about failure, it doesn't come from a point of sharing it. It comes from a point of reflecting upon it. And that has helped me immensely. I'm just grateful that it helps others as well. But I think failure plus reflection is an important component to success.
Okay, so I think we have just one or two last questions before we wind it up. And Sagar is asking, do you believe that you can learn a thing for free without going to a college or take a course and get a job?
100%, absolutely. We live in a world today, Sagar, where this is more true than ever before.
Okay, so now I think we are almost done with the questions which were almost eligible to be put to you. So let's talk a little bit about your journey in the last few months. Obviously, creating all this content and obviously seeing. I have been really kind of fascinated by the course that you have created. So I'll leave this to you to maybe talk a little bit about that, and also like. So guys, if you want to reach out to Ankur sir, I think all the links have been given in the description of this YouTube video. So you can certainly check him out. I'm pretty sure if you, just like I said in the beginning, if you are anywhere interested in startups, you already know him. So I think, yeah, so I'll leave it to you. And then maybe I can come back for the closing comments.
No, it's been a fascinating 1 year. Yeah, I think the journey from an entrepreneur to taking a break, then teaching, mentoring, guiding, creating content has taught me a lot. It's, as I said, helping me figure what I could be doing next in life, which is shaping up. But I genuinely enjoy teaching. It's something that gives me a lot of joy. And there are a few things that I think I can teach and teach well. So I'm going to spend time on that. And I always love interacting with people who want to start up and help them not make the same mistakes that I made. So at least that's the journey I'm on right now. We'll see where it takes me.
Great. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for joining in. I mean, just like I say every time, it's a Friday evening, and I know for a lot of people, it's not the most ideal time to join a live session which is about startups and entrepreneurship. And thank you very much, Ankur sir, for actually giving your time. Just like you said, 90% of your responses are no, so I'm glad this was a yes, and we could have you interact with the audience. And that's it, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend. We'll see you tomorrow with the news video, and I'll see you next week with this live again with someone else. And thank you very much. Have a good night and have a good weekend.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. All the best to everyone. Stay safe.
I will. Okay, just a second. I think we are off stage now. This is one thing when you're actually doing something on a platform which is not YouTube. You actually have to wait for a few seconds before it kind of ends. Yeah. So you don't know when